Let's stay in Matlosana in the northwest. That's where we find my colleagues, eNCA reporters Pule, Letshwiti-Jones and Moloto, who were there just covering this particular commemoration of Freedom Day. Moloko, let me start with you. What's been the reaction particularly to what the president told those gathered there today?
Hello, Masero. Well, I think from what I heard, the president really, in his speech, he was acknowledging the challenges that are still outstanding. Nothing new, really. The issue of COVID-19, how it disturbed the economy, not only of South Africa, but of the world as well, and the issue of state capture and corruption that he says have also impeded our progress. But I want to bring into this conversation Naledi Modise. She is a politics lecturer at the University of Northwest. Naledi, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start here. This is the president who is appearing in public for the first time just after those bloopers where he said that the National Executive Committee of the ANC has decided to pull out of the ICC, and we saw him in an overnight statement saying that he made a mistake. The same mistake was made by the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula. Let's talk about the optics as he came here. Did you see someone who somehow is confident and is emboldened perhaps by the perception that he might think South Africans really still have belief in him?
Good afternoon, and good afternoon to the eNCA listeners. I think that this afternoon, the president really maintained his composure and stature as a statesman, and he was able to focus on the business of the day for this very important historical day, not only in the history of South Africa, but also in the history and the legacy of the ANC. So I think that he was very well composed, and he focused on the business of the day without focusing too much on the issues that have since passed.
Yeah, it would have been important for him to speak to us. Unfortunately, we tried. His spokesperson said, no, don't even try to throw the microphone. He's not going to speak. At least he would have cleared the air there to say what was the cause of that confusion. But let's get into his very own speech. He spoke to us more like he is an opposition leader, telling us what the problems that are plaguing South Africa are, unemployment. And I did not really get to hear him giving us the solutions to say what exactly are we going to do with those issues, state capture, corruption and all that, load shedding. Of course, he's saying we are working on resolving it. How did you interpret his acknowledgement of the challenges that are plaguing us?
I think that we see this often with the president, where there isn't really any accountability from him nor the ANC side to be able to say that, yes, we acknowledge these problems, but more so we acknowledge that in large the problems were created and are maintained and sustained by us in government. And so there isn't a willingness really to address those challenges. And that, like you say, is the challenge, because if you cannot speak to the solutions of the challenges that we're having, then we cannot really have full confidence in you as a leader to ensure that those challenges or problems will be resolved.
The president said that we need to focus on something that unites us. As the president, one would have thought that he would kind of like tell us what ought to unite us. I did not get to hear him talk of that. But in terms of the social cohesion, this particular day, as we heard the Minister Zizi Godwa calling on all South Africans across the colour line to celebrate it, are we seeing everybody really rallying behind that particular cause? And what could be the reasons some of us are really not celebrating this important day?
I think, when you're listening to the president's speech, even when you're listening to him today talk about Freedom Day, there wasn't a real acknowledgement of the historical narrative and challenges that brought us ultimately to having this day, which is Freedom Day, when South Africans voted for the first time as a non-racial country. And I think because there isn't that drawing on the political history and the social history of the country, the people are disconnected then from the social political fabric, because we are not speaking to the history and the narratives that are important, but we're focusing more on the challenges, which they are important as well. But on a day like this, it was more important to focus on what led us to this day and how we need to be remembering the people that contributed to the establishment, firstly, of a democratic South Africa, but also of our non-racial society.
I'm not too sure if you were listening to my colleague Pule Letshwiti-Jones earlier before the president started speaking, when he was interviewing the locals Africans at the nearby informal settlement. One gentleman mentioned something that really caught my attention, complaining that the president has decided, in his words, speaking in Setswana, to take an event of black people, and I'm quoting him, to a place of Indian people that he says were not in the forefront in the fight against apartheid. That for me was telling, to say, where are we as South Africans in terms of social cohesion, in terms of understanding that we are one as South Africans? Who ought to be leading this particular program of conscientizing people that we are one nation?
I think this is a reflection really of the fact that a lot of South Africans don't feel as if the social and political, as well as the economic dividends of democracy they've enjoyed them, because you still see, even to this day, apartheid spatial planning still very much at the forefront of how societies in South Africa are still engaged. And I think that because of those deep divisions which exist in our society, it's going to take a little more than 30 years to completely heal them. But what is important is to have political leadership that also draws attention to these issues, speaks to them in a more nuanced way, and also inspires South Africans together collectively to celebrate days such as Freedom Day outside of party lines. Because I think even when you're looking at the attendees of this event, a number of them are really from the ANC. They are in ANC regalia. So it seems as if these days are also celebrated along partisan lines.
All right, thank you so much, Naledi Modise, for your coherent analysis and insights. And Masero, I think one thing that really also caught my attention was when the president says we want businesses to come and invest in our country. The irony, therefore, is in this very province, in the Ditsobotla municipality, we saw a dairy company, I think it's from Switzerland, if I'm not wrong, Clover, that decided to move its operations here and relocated to KwaZulu-Natal on the basis that the provincial government and the local municipality there was not dealing with the roads that are in bad shape and the issue of sanitation. And we know that millions of rands have gone back to the national treasury. That's been a trend over the years. Those are some of the issues. Of course, the president, as much as he would say trillions of rands have trickled into his efforts to bring money and investment into the country, what is happening at the other layers of government? The president obviously is going to be listening to those who will be singing for him out here. Unfortunately, through his spokesperson, we will not be allowed to speak to him. And we would have wanted to know what was the cause of the confusion regarding the decision of the NEC on whether we stay or we walk away from the ICC.
And that's also another interesting point, Moloko. This is a president that most of the time there's gatekeeping around us being able to ask him questions. I don't remember the last time the media was able to actually have a sit down with President Cyril Ramaphosa ever since he became president. All right, let's go to Pule Letshwiti-Jones, who is actually in the same area. Pule, you also have some reaction to what the president spoke about there today. What are people telling you?
Yeah, well, mixed reactions, Masejo. Some are saying that they're quite happy with the president being here today. Some are saying they could have wished that the president would have visited some of their communities which continue to experience poor service delivery. Just like my colleague Moloto has mentioned, millions going back to Treasury. These are, of course, funds which could have helped aid some of these areas which continue to experience service delivery. But of course, now I'm going to be speaking to Sibang Motlabi from the Letshwiti-Jones municipality. The areas that fall under this municipality, of course, is Christiana and Bloemhof. And now you'd remember these two areas have been massively affected by floods, particularly when we experience heavy rainfall. And the president did speak about disasters being a setback for government, referring back again to the deadly pandemic, which was COVID-19. But these floods affect businesses in the areas such as fishing, and of course sometimes you see businesses having to vacate the area due to these flooding disasters. Sibang joins me right now. Thank you very much for speaking to us this midday, Sibang. Now let's speak about disasters. I mean, we've seen how Bloemhof has been hard hit by floods, Christiana too. How has this impacted the local economy in that area?
Greetings to you, Pule, and the viewers at home. That has impacted very badly on the economy of our municipality, both in Bloemhof and Christiana, because you would remember that along those riverbanks is business people in the form of guest houses. Now, the unfortunate part about the disaster when it comes at a time in most cases where we are having what we call angling competition, known as fishing competitions. Now, people will have to vacate from those guest houses, and as a result of that, angling competitions cannot proceed. But we continuously plead with them that they must at all times bring the competition back in Bloemhof Den, so that the economy of our municipality can then be resuscitated. It's affecting it bad because you would remember that immediately after that disaster, government must make sure that they are assisting those that are affected, but mainly it's businesses. Now it takes them back in as far as business is concerned, because we are taking that as one of the tourism site in our municipality.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just being told that the president is currently speaking. We'll have to throw back to the president, Masego. Apologies for that interruption there.
ANC-led government commitment to making sure that health is made a prominent activity and budget item is irrevocable. It will always be there. And as we move to introducing the National Health Insurance, centers such as these are going to continue playing a very important role. So I'm here to, yes, open, but to say thank you to all of you who work here. Thank you very much for tiro eli dirang, or this center must operate at the level it operates. I can tell you that having seen this is world class. Ke class e ko dimu kwale. E fetang mahatse amanzi. You don't always find a wonderfully structured and well-led health facility like this in many places. So thank you for being a world-class center, and also thank you to the MEC for making sure that we have such wonderful health facilities, and thank you to the Premier for continuing with a commitment that we place the health of our people right at the top. And thank you also to the Minister of Health for the wonderful work that he continues to do. And thank you more especially to all of you. Thank you for continuing to run this place so well. So thank you to all of you. The wonderful work that you are doing here. And the last, but the most important, is that today we have a freedom baby that was born here. And we are going to have another one. So 2 freedom babies will have been born here. That fills my heart with joy. Kitabafa maina. Kitale rumela email kileblele khore maina bona ki bomang. Baba Freedom Day. Raleboga. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's open the space for the president.
All right, those are live visuals that were coming to you, of course, from the Northwest for the commemoration of Freedom Day being celebrated today. Today is, in fact, 29 years since all South Africans were able to cast their ballot.